Hello everyone, and welcome to the 7th student. Today we're doing D2.2, which is gene expression in IB biology. This is a short one. Let's get started. So, this is the same diagram I showed you the other day, and it's very, very important because remember, cells differentiate in multicellular organisms, meaning different types of cells are different. How does that work? Because they all have the same DNA, so it doesn't seem to make that much sense, okay? Well, that's achieved by activating certain genes and silencing certain genes. That is controlled by epigenetic tags, okay? So this process over here, transcription, turning DNA to mRNA, is how we control how some cells look different to others in our body, okay? And that's through epigenetic tags, okay? So it's differential gene expression. So this is really important. The genome stays unchanged. We always have the same genome. However, the transcriptome changes, right? Only the phenotype is affected. So gene expression, right, epigenesis, basically using different epigenetic tags to express some genes or others, is how we link the genotype to the phenotype, right? The genotype is non-changing, but the phenotype is, and that's because we have different transcriptomes, which then lead to different proteomes because different mRNAs are translated, okay? And then the different proteins are what result in different roles of cells. This is a super important slide, so if it's even slightly unclear, please ask me in the comments. Okay. So now let's look at how we actually activate transcription or not. So epigenetic tags are reversible. They're just chemical tags that you add. You can add it to the DNA or to histones. So for example, when you methylate, methylation is adding a CH3. When you methylate the cytosine in the promoter region, that always represses transcription. However, when you methylate histones, such as is seen here, that can activate or repress transcription. It depends, okay? So this does not alter the DNA sequence, but it changes gene expression. Now, importantly, epigenetic tags can be inherited by daughter cells in mitosis, and that's important because it maintains cell identity after division, meaning liver cells remain as liver cells. That's super important, right? However, meiosis, right, removes epigenetic tags in what's called reprogramming. However, 1% of tags can stay, and that leads to genomic imprinting, or also it's called transgenerational epigenetic inheritance, a mouthful. So that's quite important, okay, because this means that the effect of the environment on an individual can be passed on to offspring to some extent, right, even though most of them are removed. So let's look at some examples. For example, pollution can cause epigenetic changes. It can cause changes to methylation patterns, and that can lead to more disease if those genes are linked to the immune system. Another very interesting example are ligers and tigons. So ligers and tigons, right, are when a lion and a tiger mate. And basically, in lions, okay, if we're talking about lions now, females carry litters from multiple fathers. So basically, right, the father wants to have the largest cub. However, the mother wants to have the largest number of cubs. They have separate interests, right? So they each fight for their own interest through genomic imprinting. This is seen well when they mate with tigers, because ligers, right? So ligers is when the lion is the dad. The children grow very, very large because the paternal imprinting enhances growth. However, when the tiger is the dad and the lion is the mom, the cubs stay very small because the maternal lion genes are limiting growth through genomic imprinting, right? So this has a lot of consequences. Good. Another way that we can activate or repress transcription is through binding to parts of the DNA. So basically, as you remember, hopefully, transcription uses RNA polymerase, and RNA polymerase has to bind to the promoter. So a promoter, here found here, is upstream of the gene, right? It's before the gene. But apart from that, there's also enhancers and silencers, which are parts of the DNA to which activators and repressors can bind. So if an activator binds to an enhancer, that increases transcription. If a repressor binds to a silencer, that decreases transcription. Okay, so transcription factors bind to specific DNA sequences upstream of genes, right? So these activators and repressors are transcription factors. Okay, but then after transcription, even if it's already been transcribed, we can also regulate the mRNA itself, because remember, we add a poly A tail, okay, which adds stability. However, over time, this tail shortens, okay? And when it shortens, mRNA is degraded by nucleases. Nucleases are enzymes that break up things. So when this tail is shortened, mRNA can be broken down. And the rate of degradation affects protein production because mRNAs that are very short-lived, right? The protein is only going to be expressed for a small amount of time, such as cell cycle proteins. Remember, cell cycle proteins, cyclins, need to be made and destroyed really quickly, right? Well, these are short-lived mRNAs. However, long-lived mRNAs have sustained production, right? So they're not degraded as easily, and the protein is formed all of the time. How is this determined? Hormones can influence both mRNA stability and also the transcription rate, right? So hormones control all of this a lot of times. Okay, so how can we study the effect of epigenetic tags and transcriptional changes in humans? Well, we can use monozygotic twins. These are what you know as identical twins, okay? Because they have the same genes. Any differences between them are due to the environment. So for example, here we have Scott and Mark Kelly, right? One of them spent a year in space whilst the other remained on Earth. So it allowed scientists to study the effects of space travel on the human body. Okay, so that's a great example of a very niche type of study where you can use twins. Okay. And then the last thing is external factors. So gene expression can be influenced by external environmental cues. So for example, here we have the example of lactose in E. coli. Remember, E. coli is a bacteria. So basically, how does this work? Normally, there is a repressor blocking transcription of genes needed for lactose metabolism. So it's normally repressed. However, when lactose is present, lactose deactivates the repressor protein, right, allowing their transcription, and then you can do lactose metabolism. And then another example is hormonal, right? So here we have estrogen, which in humans, right, can enter cells and bind to estrogen receptors, okay, which then activate specific genes, such as, for example, those involved with progesterone, right, during the luteal phase, and more. So hormones can also directly trigger changes in gene expression. Okay, great. Super short topic. Let's do 3 quick questions. So the first is, which of the following is an example of epigenetic gene regulation? Okay, as always, pause now to think. I'm going to count down from 3. So 3, 2, and 1. Acetylation, okay? So breaking down repressor proteins by lactose is changing gene expression, but it's not epigenetic, right? You're not adding a tag. Then binding of RNA polymerase to a promoter is just starting transcription. That's not epigenetic regulation. And removal of introns is just modifications, right, after making RNA through transcription. So the only one that's actually adding a tag is acetylation, which is another type. It's not methylation, right? It's just another type. Great. Second question, how can alternative splicing affect the transcriptome of a cell? Okay, this is mixing 2 topics. So 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so it does not cause mutations. Alternative splicing is where you just take different exons, right, and make different proteins using different combinations, right? So one gene can code for multiple proteins in that way. It does not increase DNA replication rate, right, or shorten the poly A tail. Remember, it's just using different parts of the gene, different exons to code for different proteins. Okay. And finally, in which situation would you expect high expression of the progesterone receptor gene in the endometrium? Okay, and again, 3, 2, and 1. So when estrogen binds to nuclear receptors in uterine cells, remember from chemical signaling, estrogen enters cells and can directly activate transcription. If there's no estrogen, transcription isn't being activated, then DNA methylation in the promoter region actually represses transcription, and bacterial plasmids are not found in humans. So hopefully that makes sense. Any questions, leave them in the comments. And until then, I'll see you for the next topic. Goodbye, everyone.